It's one of the most dynamic times that we've seen, at least in my lifetime. Let me start with the challenges. So on the challenges, I would say we're seeing a proliferation of security challenges. We have strategic competition happening. We have potential emerging conflicts happening elsewhere around the world. So there's a global security challenge environment that we're working in. Secondly, we're seeing political shifts that we haven't seen in a long time. Countries are rethinking how they think about sovereign capacity, how they can deal with the challenges of political changes, and then we're seeing supply chain challenges, but also taxes and tariffs are creating an environment that is very uncertain for actually doing the business of maintaining security. So in that very dynamic security environment, countries are rethinking how they address these challenges. So in previous years, people looked for where the best technology was and bought it. That's simply not good enough anymore. Countries want both to have the technology, but they need to have sovereign capacity. They need to have the ability to secure their own populations in spite of political changes, in spite of supply chain changes, which means that as a defense company, aerospace and defense company operating globally, we need to think about the entire package. Yes, Hanwha has incredibly transformative technology that can meet the needs, but that in of itself is not good enough. We also need to be focused on what the customers need, and what the customers need is sovereign capacity. So in a world this disruptive, it calls for a constructive, disruptive response. And that is what Hanwha's global security strategy is, really, to help nations meet needs, to help address national security, but also to create and transform alliances and partnerships. So Hanwha's global defense strategy is really all about bringing transformative technology, but also bringing sovereign capacity. So we are maintaining our strength as a leading aerospace and defense company in Korea, while at the same time becoming a multi-domestic leading global aerospace and defense player. So we are doing that with domestic indigenous presence in the Commonwealth of Australia. So in Australia, on the back of success on Redback, which is an infantry fighting vehicle, and the Huntsman, which is a self-propelled howitzer, Australia was the first step, but we have global ambition, and there are global unmet needs. So we are very focused on presence in the Middle East. We're very focused on presence in Europe. We're very focused on presence in the United States, bringing the best transformative technology while at the same time bringing that sovereign capacity. We think that does many things. Not only is it business for Hanwha, but it creates strength in the national security, international security base in a very disruptive time, because while it is a defense sale, it is increasing security collaboration between Korea and its partners around the world. It is creating bonds between our militaries around the world. All of that is a very comforting, strengthening thing for a challenged international system. So I would start with technology. Countries invest in different technology for different reasons. Korea is a nation that has had to be on a war footing for decades now. That has created an urgency, different way of thinking than many countries around the world have had to do. Because of that, we have an incredibly strong defense industrial base. We've been investing in technology to meet security requirements. So there are many great global defense companies, and frankly, the world needs them right now. But I believe Hanwha is uniquely positioned because of who we are, where we've come from, because of the threats we've faced. The world sees that, and there's a great pull from partners around the world to bring technology, to bring that historic investment in those technologies forward. But we're not stopping there. So we are very actively investing to make sure that we continue to have the best in the technology. We're not relying on who we've been, which is very strong, but we have an eye to the future and meeting those needs in the future. We have an eye to investing to keep our technology the best in the world. There are some nations in the world that have a Navy problem, some nations that have an Army or an air problem, but increasingly in today's environment, everything crosses all of those boundaries. So Hanwha's breadth of our portfolio creates an opportunity for us to meet needs that some other defense companies who have very good technology simply aren't able to meet, because if a nation is looking to impact its maritime security is impacted not just by the ocean ships that we can provide, but also by the unmanned aerial products that we can provide, by the offshore artillery that we can provide. So it gives us a bit of a unique portfolio to address very sort of cross-cutting challenges in today's environment. The needs in Europe are acute. So Hanwha is uniquely positioned for Europe in a couple of ways. One, we already have the technology. We've been doing the investment. So to fill urgent needs, the European nations will need to come to partners that have capability now, and Hanwha has capability now, as they build up their own domestic defense base. But we have an eye to being a domestic European defense company. So we have already invested in a partnership joint venture in Poland. Similarly, we're in talk in Romania about creating a new facility there. We're a Korean company, but we have the most proliferated self-propelled howitzer in Europe, which means we already have strong relationship. Given the changes in political environment, we will need to be more European, even as we remain strong in Korea. And we believe that advances not only Hanwha's business objectives, but also the national objectives of European nations and the national objectives of Korea to enhance those relationships. There are certainly differences between regions around the world. The Middle East is very focused on ground combat. Europe is with a ground combat going on and very focused on ground, but because of the nature of that conflict, they're increasingly interested in unmanned. We're addressing those needs differently by a different region, but the common threat between all of those remains the same. They're looking for transformative technology and they're looking for sovereign capacity. Hanwha has an eye to helping our partners around the world and in the Korean government to achieve those goals. Yeah, some of the best defense companies in the world operate in the United States. They are not particularly concerned with where that technology is developed. They will be concerned about that technology being in a sovereign capacity. So based on that, given our technology, given the value that we provide, and given our willingness to become a sovereign capability partner in the United States, positions us incredibly well. So we've, for many decades, been involved in the United States in energy and in other aspects. More recently, with an eye to growing our defense presence there, we acquired a shipyard in Philadelphia. It is a very good shipyard, but it is a commercial shipyard. And we have an eye to taking the technology that we have in Akpo and bringing that technology to help the United States meet its sovereign U.S. Navy needs. Depending on the market, it will take different shapes. Some nations that already have strong defense industrial base, then we have an eye to not disrupting that, but to being a good technology partner. I'd like to see us being a leading global aerospace and defense player. But to me, what that means is not just a larger, stronger, more capable company, but it means growing to be a multi-domestic company. And the aspects of that are numerous, but it becomes maintaining the core strength of what makes Hanwha great in our Korean heritage, and then including in that partners from around the world to develop a much more robust defense ecosystem, and Hanwha as a leading global aerospace and defense player being at the center of that. I spent my career passionate about a couple of things. One of them is security cooperation, cooperation between partners to make the world a safer place. And that has fed my energy both in my U.S. naval career, in my U.S. government career, and for the last 15 years in defense industry. Much of security cooperation can be addressed by governments, and I think we, as global citizens, should support that to increase stability. But governments alone can't solve many of these problems. At the core of what combines us as humans is business and interaction. And to me, the industrial capacity, mobilizing the commercial side to make us stronger as a world and a global community. I believe Hanwha plays a critical role in that.